This summer, unlock your potential with our summer workshop. Join our dynamic online courses, designed for everyone aged 13 to 75, starting June 1st through August 3rd with Mbwebe Ishangi of the Crypto Woke Financial Sustainability Movement. Dive into financial education for adults or gear up for success with financial education for student athletes. Teens and young adults can build their financial future, and everyone can explore the wonders of STEAM. For just $149.99, you get access and can invite 3 friends or family members to join you or choose their own course. That's for people for one low price. Workshops start June 1st and run through August 3rd. Sign up now and invest in your future. Discover the world of STEAM with Mbwebe Ishangi's engaging online course. From slave ships to steamships. STEAM stands for science, technology, engineering, arts, and math, fields that drive innovation and creativity. Perfect for families aged 13 to 75. This course brings these disciplines to life through history, hands-on projects, interactive lessons, and real-world applications. You'll explore robotics, coding, art integration, and more, all from the comfort of your home. Sign up today and reignite the creative genius inside for every generation. Visit CryptoWokeMovement.com for details.
Welcome to WTF, Ways to Freedom podcast show, where we explore all areas that bring freedom in state of mind, body, and spirit. Sit back, open your mind, and take a journey with your host, Mbwebe Ishangi.
Bless up, everyone. Good evening. Hope everyone is well. We at it again with another one. We are doing episode 7. The day is Wednesday, May the 22nd, 2024. And we are here yet again, blessed to be here to talk about yet another banger that I feel will help us in our path or journey to ways towards freedom. Welcome to WTF, not what the fuck, but Ways to Freedom podcast show, where we speak about things that are innovative, creative, historical, psychological, metaphysical, health, all these type of things that are triggered towards tapping into the inner genius that lies inside of us, and hoping that it will trigger a movement of us to do something more than just have the literate wealth, but also to manifest it in the physical realm. So tonight we are here again with another episode, giving thanks for you all for tuning in on a Wednesday evening. There could be a ton of other things you could do. I'm sure the game is on, a couple other things. You probably worked all day and you kind of want to chill. So for you to take time to tune in and with me, I really, really do appreciate that. We are on every Tuesday through Thursdays for the foreseeable future at 9 p.m. and we are dropping headbangers each time. So if you've been with us before, hopefully you love the content that I'm putting out. And if you being here is showing that you are loving it, I give thanks for that humbly. Deep gratitude towards that. And I hope that you will continue to ride this wave with me as we continue to, expand and learn and share and engage. So if you are just coming in, please feel free to do a roll call in the chat. The chat is open to let me know where you're hailing from. Giving thanks for you again tuning in. Summer Dance, bless up. Thank you for coming through. We got Brother Gerard, always there. Salute, General. Appreciate you coming in, man, from H-Town. Peace and blessings, melanated family. Always giving thanks for your engagement, brother. And just, hoping that, I don't know what today was like for you all. Yesterday we had a pretty good. I think I feel really good about what we did yesterday. It was a pretty good conversation, and for me, it was really about trying to expose us to different things that are going on. Today is no different. Today we're going to be talking about something that I feel is foundational. A lot of stuff I like to talk about is really getting towards the psychological barrier, breaking that psychological barrier. And Sister Kendra, greetings. Thank you for tuning in always as well. Uh, Basically, talking about the psychological barriers that have been put on us that we might not be aware of. And it's kind of hard when you're under psychosis, when you've been put under that spell. And the spell it's not some spell where like you're a zombie, but the spell is like, well, wow, I didn't even know, I didn't realize that this is the way I was thinking or the way I was taught to think. So, it's not so much that I'm saying I am the way or I am the solution. No, what I'm saying is I think there needs to be some contrast or some counters to what we've been thinking to try to jog you out of and get you to reassess what you've been thinking and ask yourself, did I really choose it to believe this type of mind, have this mindset, or was it put on me? Was I indoctrinated to some degree? And then I can go back and analyze how I got to this way. How are my habits the way they are? How do I think the way I think? Why are some of the word usages that I use? And then decide if there's something you want to continue to do. So this is kind of that red pill or blue pill type of thing, a podcast, if you're looking for that. I'm not going to say the word with M and it ends with an X because I'm not really a big fan of those folks. But nevertheless, Sister Cassie, give thanks for coming through. Appreciate you. Um, but yeah, so, this podcast is the place where we want to speak about all things going on in the world, again, from the past, present, and to charting us towards our future. And it has an African twist to it. So for those that may not want to identify themselves as being African, that's okay. It's for Black people. And I would urge or suggest that you just hold tight, listen, because it does pertain to you. Because like I always say, as much as we might not see ourselves in the same light, be it culturally, being some are coming from the Caribbean, some are from the actual motherland, some are from other parts of the world, some are from the States, that collectively they see us as the same. And when we start to see ourselves as a collective, then we'll understand that this plan, this blueprint that they've been using is easy to dissect. Easy to dissect. I'll just say that. All right. So as I do with each show, I speak about I give a preface of what we're going to be talking about. What is WTF? I'm not going to belabor it like I usually do, but we usually cover each episode is going to cover one of the six themes. Those themes are finance, sustainability, spirituality, health, STEAM, and philosophy. I'm sorry, history. I didn't mean to say sustainability. That's part of it. That's part of STEAM. But so those six themes we kind of cover. I look to cover every episode, one of those themes, if not several of those, and woven into one. And then also we use that as our background, as our basis. We use the 10 areas of people activity that was created by Doctors Neely Fuller, Ancestor Francis Cress Welsing, and also Brother Kidi Owadu. So the 10 areas are like I do this every time because again I want you to be able to run it off your tongue whenever asked. And these are the 10 areas that global white dependency uses to govern the world. That is economics, entertainment, education, health, labor law, politics, religion, sex, and war. So those are the 10 areas that are used to govern the world or somewhat control the world the way it's been so far. How are we in the way we are? Because of these 10 areas. They created 10 areas and they are using these 10 areas to manipulate the rest of the masses, particularly focusing on people of African descent, because once you get us, then you got everybody else. All right. So that's what each episode of what our mission is to cover those areas and have that real dialogue conversation about it to the point where we want to not only speak about it just for gossiping sake, but also let's talk about some resolutions and solutions. All right. So tonight's topic. Tonight's topic. Money is always, that's one of the, well, there's several things I love to talk about, obviously, but money is also one of the most paramount ones I want to talk about, mainly because I realize that money is something that, although we spend our lives working for it, it is the one thing that we spend the least time being aware of. And so whenever I get a chance to talk about finances, it's not so much, hey, let me help you raise your credit score 100 points, or, that's those type of things. It's more so to understand that, hey, do you know that money has been, there's a certain type of systemic mindset that has been created with money that has enabled us or prohibited us from living a full life. And if you go back and look in our archives, you can see that there are pieces that I've talked about. There's a episode we did last week called uh, "Why Everyone Needs Financial Therapy," why we all need financial therapy. And although we're in the stage now where everybody's into, we're into our feelings, and it's okay to have therapy. That's one thing that maybe 20, 30 years ago, at least a generation ago, especially Black men would do no therapy. You know what I'm saying? But we need therapy the most, and in so many ways, not just financially. But there's so many other ways that we need finance therapy. And I look at therapy also as a place of discussion where you get to talk about your relationships, your behaviors, your habits, and then also speak about how you honed in or how those habits were put on you, how you adopted those habits. And then now to figure out, are these habits beneficial to me moving forward? And what can I do if it isn't? What is the alternative? So tonight, I felt I'm still a student of finances. So don't think that I am the master level. As they say, it takes 10,000 hours to become a master of something. I'm not at 10,000 hours yet. I'm close to it. I'm definitely close to it because I spend a lot of time speaking about and learning and applying what I've learned about finances. But at the same time, I'm going to always be learning. And as I'm learning, I'm not the type of person that waits and say, well, you know what, let me wait till I get all this down and then I'm going to deliver it and share it. I do as is, because the reason why I look at that is because it's all about each one reach many. I don't believe in the each one teach one. I'm all about the each one reach many. Reach as many people as you can. This is the reason why I'm doing this podcast. It enables me to have a reach that is, if not live reaching people, but then in the replays, it's sitting there in the cloud, so to speak, where someone eventually, maybe a week from now, 5, 10 years from now, may fall upon this episode and learn about some things about in tonight's particular topic about finances from an African perspective, and be able to apply that into their lifetime and then change the trajectory of their entire bloodline. That is the goal. That is the goal. So saying that to say that tonight's topic I'm talking about is history. I'm a lover of that, still learning it as well. And so as I'm learning it, I'm like, you know what? I can't hold on to this. I got to get this information out. So what you're going to hear tonight is going to be some segments of what I've been learning in regards to finances and the creation of the monetary system uh, globally, but in specifically America, because this is where a lot of us are residing. The reason why I want to speak about that is because this is something, when you start, man, when you go into that rabbit hole and you start looking into uh, what's going on that's been planned over 100 years ago, and you see that it's still working efficiently, uh, it gives you sort of a, I don't know, it gives you different kinds of feelings. One, pissed off because we realize that we've been taken advantage of. Another part is not admiration, but like, damn, they really self-determined. Those that put this system together, they really self-determined and put this thing together to the point where it's working even after they transitioned. They've made it so that their beneficiaries, the beneficiaries of their beneficiaries, are still yielding profit and gain and and prosperity from the efforts that they did. And that's one terminology that I like to use that I learned from ancestor Steve Coakley is futurologist. Being a futurologist, someone that studies the future, plans for the future. That's another component that I had, that of the many hats I think that we should all wear, is the things that are happening in our lifetime. We may think it's just in our lifetime, when in actuality it's a continuation that's been happening from generations prior to. And each generation receives a harder blow of it if there's no alternative plan put in place. So we talk about how, things are hard right now, or things are a struggle right now. And yes, they probably were harder, in many different ways. 100, at least 160 years ago, we were enslaved, right? But still, things are not on par of us being able to live a fruitful life. So when you think about how generation after generation is continually being this way, it has to make you wonder, well, damn, is it systemic? Is it something that somebody put together or somebody's put together? It can't be all coincidental, right? So I mean, it is on autopilot right now, I'll say a lot of it. But at the same time, if you think about your day and what you did today, be it you worked a 9 to 5 and or you're an entrepreneur and you did your thing for your business, for those folks that are trying to control the world, trust me, they spent their day today thinking about what they can do, not for today, but probably 20, 30, 50 years from now. That's their obligation because someone did that for them. So futurologist is a term that I hope that you look into and maybe consider adopting and adding part of your portfolio of life, is that we think about what can I do for those that are not even born yet, my great greats that aren't even here yet, and not even just in my direct bloodline, but as a collective. What can I do to make things a little better? And if we are not doing that without discussing the finances, then we're doing a disservice. It's one thing to pass the cultures, the books, the lectures, the oral stories. It's another thing to pass on assets. It's another thing to pass on land. It's another thing to have something that is tangible that allows a person to be somewhat independent and not so much in contrast dependent on what the system is giving them. All right. So with that said, tonight we're going to talk about the creation of the two Americas, as I mentioned. We just pull it up again. So tonight's topic is the history of money and the two Americas. If you just some house duties here as you come in, I really appreciate again you coming through. If you wouldn't mind, please liking the video now, so it's done out the way. I promise I'll earn that like. Even if you're on Facebook and you like on Facebook, please feel free to go ahead and click the link to come to YouTube and just subscribe so that you can get subscription notices, notifications to help me build the channel, and also hit a like there. I really appreciate that. It again helps me to build this channel, as you know, and that's my goal, is to reach as many as I can as possible. So we're on a quest to get to 500 subscribers. We are in our technically third week, beginning third week. Yeah, this is our third week. So we're trying to make some moves here to get to the point where we can have a more robust presence on YouTube, and it can't be done without you. And with that said, also, if you know of someone that you think may benefit from this, please invite them. Please share this video right now. And if you're on Facebook, share it with some of your friends, your groups, what have you, your girlfriends, your partners. Tell them to tune in. And if they can't tune in, at least they have the link and they can watch the replay. Again, that is I ask with humility and gratitude in you doing that and considering it. All right. Okay. So let's get started with today. So you know that I'm always going to do the visuals because I'm a visual person. So I love for us to see things. Again, I do slides for most times because I want you to see what I'm talking about to make it drive home. And I put a lot of time and work into this stuff, y'all. So I love this. If you didn't know, I'm a graphic designer, web developer, videographer, anything visual, anything that you see that is technical, graphical, all that kind of stuff. That's what I do. So I have a passion. I'm just not going to throw up some cookie cutter sheet PowerPoint. No diss to other people because maybe not have that skill, but I do. That's what I do. So I put love into what I'm doing. I put something in here that I want to be eye-catching, and most importantly, I hope that it is something that you can learn from and feel that it is definitely worth watching. All right. So here we go. Again, today we're talking about the history of America, history of money, and the two Americas, rather. And this is going to be, as if you know about, I talk about ancestor Asa Hilliard a lot. He talks about how if you study history, you must do it in chronological order. So, when we do that, when you give timelines of things, you get to actually, it allows you to better propagate what was happening, what was going on in the world at that time. So that's the whole goal, is to give you a timeline so that you can also take notes, or you can watch this video again and you can take your notes and do your own diligence. I don't mind that. That's what's important. It's about the biggest part of learning is being able to allow someone that is listening to capture it so that they can do and continue on their research and maybe even contribute. Okay. So that's what we're going to be talking about, to Nizite. And my opening thought here is, I got to pull out my Wu-Tang, right? We talk about money, and, one of their classic tracks is Cream, right? Cash was everything around me. These days, it isn't just cash. It's, it's all other types of currencies. If it's not digital currency, it's junk silver, it's gold, it's stocks, bonds, etc. Right? So I changed it to currency rules everything around me. But in the case with that notion, it does rule everything around me, then why don't we spend enough time learning about it? If you think about it, we spend the majority of our day is about going to get that bag, right? Be it to get it to pay for a bill, to cover the mortgage, to cover the car note, insurance, or if it's to because I'm taking my family to a vacation and we're going to Florida or we're going to Jamaica or Costa Rica this summer. I need to budget to have this money aside, so I got to go out and work for it, right? But outside of that, we don't have a lot of wealth conversations. We don't spend too much time talking about how we can build wealth. And I think that's the one thing that evades us, because if we don't talk about wealth in our earlier years, then in our later years, we're talking about how to survive because we didn't put anything away. All right. So when we think about, and I'll honestly, the chat is open. You can actually respond to this. If you think about all of your years of education, if you went through college or high school, if you can recall, and even if you've been out of college for over a decade, since then, have you or has anyone ever spoken to you about finances? Have you ever had a real conversation about how money is created, how money works for you, opposed to this is $1, $5, this is a budget, simple things, but actual wealth conversations? Have you really had those? And I'm not talking about I'm going to set up an insurance policy, so we're talking about the insurance policy. Even after all that's done, are you still learning about money? Are you still learning about wealth? Right. And I say that because I say this a lot in my course, is that the wealth say that they have this principle of 5-hour rule. If you're not spending 5 hours a week learning about finances, then you are being irresponsible. 5 hours a week is roughly, if you did it 7 days a week, that's 42.8 minutes a day. So out of 24 hours, if you took less than an hour to learn about finances, 5 hours a week, then you would be close to getting that $10,000 mark of being a master of learning about finance and know about finances. And you could apply those principles. A lot of us, we don't spend 5 hours a week, not even, I'll say even an hour a week learning about finances. And I'm not talking about paying bills, that part. No, actually learning about how finances work. So we weren't taught anything about finances from public school, middle school, from grade school, middle school, high school, college. Even if you majored, I was a major in economics my first year and a half in college, and didn't learn even a decibel of what what I know right now about finances. And it's not that they keep it away from you; it's just they don't even know themselves. So that conversation evades us continually. And because of that, we grow up in a world where we think, it's just the way the world is. It's the rat race psychosis. You got to get a job. You got to work. You got to put away money. You got to put money in these places that pay you very little in return, like a bank account that'll give you less than 2%, or we'll buy stocks and bonds. I remember I bought, I had two $50 US saving bonds in 2009. And when I lost my job in 2017, I went to go see how much they accrued, and they only made an increase of $1.60. So $100 in 9 years only gained $1.60 in U.S. saving bonds. So these are the things that, if we don't know any better, we think these are the only vehicles we can use. And we know they BS. It's not nothing you can really get rich off of. But yet we still do these things, so we don't know if there's anything else. So that is the issue that we find. Sister Ami says, takeaway budgeting, Dave Ramsey and insurance talks up until recently. No, I haven't had any meaningful combos about finance until your book and lectures. Madai said, give thanks, sister. I appreciate you. And something on Dave Ramsey and Susie Orman. Those are the people that are on TV talking about finances. They're going to be the ones that are going to tell you, hey, for instance, they're going to tell you to do short-term or termed life insurance policies, because they understand that the real wealth is being made with permanent insurance, and they're not going to expose that to the masses, because that's something that is for the big boys, the elite. That's where they make their money. So these people that are on TV to tell you certain things, most likely they're telling you to go left when you should probably go right. Sister Kedra, she said, we put money in 401k and have to pay taxes to use it, plus get charged interest. Exactly. So we thinking we balling because I got a portfolio, a digital portfolio, but how much is it yielding? How is it performing? And then also, how susceptible is it? Because your 401k, your money's not safe. If there is a market crash, guess what? That money's lost too. If you didn't know, that happened in the housing crisis. I lost over $250,000 in my 401k. during the housing crisis of 2007 to 2010. And I didn't know that they don't replenish it. I figured, hey, they're going to put that money back. Small print, it tells you right there, they're not responsible. It's a risk. And so because of that, although I was in my 30s, my early 30s, I figured I got time to rebuild my retirement nest. But a recession can happen at any point. So if you are in your 50s and you're about to retire and there's a recession and you lose, a third, a half, or even all of your 401k monies, what are you going to do for the rest of your life? Right. And again, no one's there to tell you that this is happening. And these recessions, they happen overnight. So it's not like someone's going to give you a heads up because we're not on the inside. Right. There are people. Yeah. This kid just said I lost money from COVID. Yeah. People lose money all the time. And we're investing in these things that we think is going to be there. And it's not. Or if we do invest in these principles or these places, these platforms, we find that they don't keep up with the rate of inflation. So your $100,000 today may be worth $50,000 20 years from now because of the rate of inflation. So that's the whole thing. And we don't have these monetary conversations. And so because of that, we are understanding that, we're being bamboozled. We don't know what else to do. Sister Ami says, then to find out recessions are planned, diabolical. Yes, they are planned. Everything is systemically planned, y'all. Let's understand there is no coincidence. There's no mishap. There's no happenstance. There's no, this came out of nowhere. The elite, first of all, the elite have no cultural loyalties. They're not American. They're not British. They are of their family, 13 families, if you want to even go deeper than that. And they have no allegiance to the borders or the shores that they live on. In fact, they don't even believe that there are borders. They convinced us there are borders. And if you think about it, that is the irony of this all, is that we think that there are borders that separate us from living on this planet. Think about it. Europe and Asia, there is no body of water separating them two, right? But they're considered continents. And the continent is supposed to be a land of a massive land separated by water. But is Europe and Asia separated? No. So literally, you could take one step and be in Europe and the next step be in Asia. But they've convinced us and created these illusionary borders that make us think there's allegiances, there's laws, there's governing all these type of things. Whereas the elite are sitting here chuckling every day, realizing how much they've convinced and baffled us. But okay, that is the whole issue, talking about finances. So today we're going to talk about it from the formation of the creation of the U.S. dollar in America and its monetary system. Let me just blow this up a little bit so you can see it better. When we talk about the disparity, cultural disparity, 2019 this is a number where the Blacks' wealth, those that are of African descent, people of African descent in the United States, we were $3,600 down from $5,600. This is prior to COVID, whereas whites' wealth was $147,000. That went up to 113. I'm sorry, up from 113,000. So they were at 113,000 and went up to 147. We went down, they went up. And it's because they're diversifying their money. If you look at this chart, this is telling you the racial wealth inequality is rampant in the U.S. And these are projections for coming into this year, 2024. And they're showing that the average household, the red is for people of African descent, the blue is for Caucasians, and the orange is for Latinos. The Latinos have surpassed us in regards to the average home wage earning. And whereas we are making $1,200 on average, the average family, $1,200 a year. Yeah, a year. Average. Not a month, a year. Whereas white folks are making $122,000 on average. So that's a huge wealth gap. Huge wealth gap. And nothing is really being addressed, done to address it. And that's because, again, we are not taking the responsibility on ourselves to learn about this and do something about it. This information is available. Tactics and strategies are available. We just don't sit down and do the learning because most cases, we're too tired from work. We just came home. I did a shift, and I don't feel like it. All right. So yeah. Sister Ami says, what? A year? Yeah. Look it up. Yep. So poverty is therefore etymologically assigned to Black folk. This is why I wrote my book, A Pot to Piss in Intergenerational Wealth Planning, because we still don't have a window we don't have a pot to piss in or a window to throw it out of. Although we do, I'll say if you read this book, you will find ways. But most of us, because we're not having these conversations, we still don't know how to build wealth or even maintain it, hold on to it. But the thing that most banks don't want us to know is that they practice the art of arbitrage. And arbitrage is basically, by definition, the practice of taking advantage of a price difference between two or more markets, right? And while they offer us less than 2% in savings, they make 5% figure dividends by our deposits. So we talked about this when I talked about how we all need financial therapy, and how when you put in, we have the fractional reserve lending system where you put in, if they 10x every deposit. So if you put in $1,000, that the bank that you put it into, because of the way the Federal Reserve note is set up, or the Federal Reserve Bank is set up, is that $10,000 or that $1,000 gets 10x. So it's now 10,000. And now they have an additional, minus your 1,000 that you deposited, $9,000 made out of nowhere, to then use this to then send out to loans for people that they charge interest on. And meanwhile, you get 0% from that, and you're the one that seeded that loan in the first place. If you didn't put that $1,000 in there wouldn't be no $10,000 to use, and you get nothing from it. In fact, you get charged because your monthly maintenance of the site is due, of your account is due. All right. So this is what we're dealing with. But also, it's not just what bankings do. The bank is obviously the extremities of the government. So the government is the one that doesn't want you to know that they also are practicing the biggest form of what I would like to call arbitrage, and that's history. Letting you know how they created the system and what they've been doing to maintain its position. All right. So we're going to talk about that tonight. That's what tonight is about. All right. So I had this timeline that we talk about here. We're going to go through it because I feel like it's necessary for us to really be skeptical, about the way things that they presented to us versus what really happened. And yeah, this is in the history. Like, oh man, we doing school. Like, I remember reading about wars and stuff. I didn't pay too much. I personally did not pay too much about the wars and stuff because I wasn't interested, But now I'm very interested in what was going on behind the scenes, because what they were telling us in school was, the illusion or the lie, right? They want us to think that, they were fighting for the freedoms of all people. And, we talk about all, let's define who the all is. It wasn't those of this persuasion. Let's just be real, right? So let's just look at this formation here real quick, this timeline. This is the prelude to the first America. This is before 1776. This is before the Declaration of Independence, before America was America, so-called. And while they were still the, let's just say, bastard child of Great Britain, okay? What we find between the years of 1756 and 63 is the 7-Year War that was fought mainly in Europe and the Americas, right? Mainly in Europe and in the Americas. And so what this world is like in this period was, this is when white folk was fighting everybody. I mean, themselves. They was fighting all white folk. They was fighting. It was like phone booth battles. Like they was right next to each other, and they were fighting each other. And it was several different wars that happened, including the French Indian War, the Anglo-Spanish War. And it was all about England trying to levy taxes on everybody, trying to get everybody to pay them. While they went and explored the rest of the underdeveloped world, they would try to also have the audacity to charge them taxes because of, we allowed you to leave, for instance. And so whatever you find, if you want to continue to do trade with us, we can do the trade and we're going to hit you there, but we also will hit you on taxes. So we had that period of 7 years. It was called the 7-Year War. Just some things that followed after that. We had in 1765, the Stamp Act. And the Stamp Act was pretty much where we had direct duties, taxes, and printed documents on colonists using London stamp paper with a seal. So this is how anal they were. It was like, look, if you want to use any legal documents, because, you're a new country or you're establishing the country, but you're still under the umbrella of us, that any kind of documents, you need to use our paper. And, you need to use our seal, which is going to be basically us controlling everything. So you're going to stamp it with our seal. That's our approval. You got to get our permission, so to speak. And these are for the people of the original 13 colonies that came over here to America, the criminals that came here, that, wanted to leave Britain because they felt that they were being abused and they wanted freedom. So they decided they wanted to break away. There's different stories. Some of the stories are that they actually were all criminals, and that London were like, look, let's get them out of here. Let's send them to some underdeveloped land in North America. And if they can survive, then we'll create a relationship. But if they die, we'll be we won't miss them. That's kind of what the setup was. And so when they got here, they actually were able to create. They did the 13 colonies, etc. And so now we began opening up trade. And so they were like, well, we're gonna hit you over the head. We want you to, you're gonna have to pay for this or that. And so that was repealed in 1866, where colonists were thinking, hey, how are you going to be able to dictate what we're doing over here, and you're way over there? You don't even know what it's like to live over here. We're developing, we're creating, we're being independent. Our mindset is being independent, and we want to break away from you. So we are going to rebel. And this is what led to the American Revolutionary War. Throughout that, also, we saw the Townshend Act of 1767 to 68, where several acts of taxation. This was again all about Britain trying to stay in the pockets of everyone that they even exiled out of their own country. We're gonna kick you out, but you're gonna still pay us if you survive. And so if you want any assistance, if you want, any of those type of things, then you're going to have to kick us some money and then something. We're not talking about small percentages. We're talking in some cases well over 50, 60, 70%. Okay. So you talk about Robin Hood, robbing the rich. Stealing from the poor, and giving it to the rich is basically what was happening here, even across seas. And if not, then we bring our troops over and we go to war, right? Which is what happened. 1775, we had the Revolutionary War, and the colonists rebelled, and they fought in protest against England. So we had, again, them saying, we ain't going to pay y'all. England's like, yes, you are. They like, no, we not. Okay, we coming true. We came true, and we had a battle, right? And the America seemed to have prevailed. From there, the following 1776, when we have the formation of America, we see that there's grievances that were filed against England. 27 of them were filed. Involuntary taxes, tax harassment, no trial by jury, unfair practices against natural rights were a few of those that stood out. And again, this is something, again, America looking like, a victim, like, and anyone would think that, well, damn, they just trying to live. They're just trying to do their own thing. They don't even live in y'all jurisdiction no more. Why don't y'all leave them alone? And Britain was like, nah, we still trying to get y'all to pay us. This is what we do. This is how we colonize and control. And they were like, we ain't having it. And we will fight to our last breath if necessary. All right. So that meant going to war. That meant that they had to declare their independence. We had to break away from England and say, we don't want nothing to do with y'all no more. So we had that we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, right? So again, you're hearing white folks say this. And what baffles me is how short a memory they have for the battle that they have for them to get free from England, how they turn around and still treat us the same way they were treated. And when I'm speaking about that, I'm speaking about people of color, right? Our history, our relationship with Europeans or Caucasians in the world, and also in this country, especially when you think about this country, these people that say that they fought for their freedom to be detached from, overlords in Britain, they became overlords here. So yeah, Sister Ami said that they weren't talking about us. They definitely weren't. Definitely only talking about themselves, right? But again, this is what the hypocrisy of it is that you see people that want to talk about how they've been victimized, and they turn around and do the same thing that was done to them. So when we look at the timeline now, we're seeing 1776 now, America has begun. It's up and running, so to speak. And the first thing they need to do was they need to create a bank. So the first bank was opened in 1791. However, the money that they used to fund the bank was not funded by their own money because America was broke. So although you're trying to break away from Britain, you're still going and asking your parents, can you give me a loan? Can you help me out here? And again, so, my thought is, well, damn, if you want to be independent, don't ever come and asking for anything. But that's what they did. They needed funding because of the wars that they had and all the damage that was done, and plus all the development they needed to create in this new land, that they needed funding and sources. So they went back to Britain to ask for loans to help them through the bank. And what happened, these private owners, these private investors that were in Britain, ended up owning 80% of that bank, that first bank in 1791. 80% of that bank was owned by folks overseas, an American bank, right? And 20% of it was owned by the U.S. government. Okay, so that's letting you know right now. I want to talk about the percentage differences. It isn't a 50-50 split. It's an 80-20 in this case. All right, so 20 cents out of every dollar is what America keeps. All right, so this is again the victimization that they put themselves into, and of course it didn't sustain itself. But from there, when we jump to 1861 to 62, we started seeing the formation of currency. The first, what they were called greenbacks, and these notes were basically, to, instead of you walking around with a pocket full of gold coins and and silver, because obviously it's very loud, you can get jacked, all those type of things, that we were convinced to use federal notes to represent the amount of money that you have in a bank. So you would give them your gold, your silver, whatever other type of assets you would have in physical form, and they would give you these notes. That's how we got to paper money, because it was just too heavy to carry around. Who could carry out a block of gold bullion? Who could, right? Who would want to? Because again, you could get jacked in any second. But again, we have these notes that are being created, and they're being disseminated and put out during the Civil War, and these were called U.S. Federal Reserve notes. Let me blow this up here. So all persons. So then at the same time, we see that in 1868, shortly after that, and you follow the timeline here. After 1861, the Civil War, U.S. notes were created. 2 years later, we were emancipated from slavery. Lincoln was killed 2 years after that. And then 3 years after that, we have the 14th Amendment that was created. And in this 14th Amendment, we find the truth right here. Yes, will you stop? Yes, I. It is right here. The education is here. Give thanks. So we see that the 14th Amendment, Section 1, talks about how all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and of the state wherein they reside. No state shall make or enforce any law which shall abridge the privilege of immunities of citizens of the United States, nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor dens any person within its jurisdiction the equal protection of the laws. So here's the thing where we start to get into the confusion. There is, if you see here on the left, is the Black Laws Dictionary. And I've recently been learning about how there is this term called legalese. I'll talk about it in a second. But legalese is basically the language that you and I use every day to describe and explain things are totally different when it comes into the eyes of the law. Okay. So you might say one thing and it means this, but in a court of law, it means totally different. So when you look up Black Laws Dictionary, the definition of persons has dual meanings. You have what's called a living being and artificial being. And, when you think about artificial being, you automatically go to artificial intelligence. You think a robot, blah, blah, blah. No. Artificial being actually comes down to how you describe yourself, how you declare yourself to his U.S. government. And the thing is, and I'm learning, is that we didn't know we had a choice, that we could declare ourselves as a living being. We are actually artificial beings, y'all. If you know anything about trust, if you know anything about legalese, when we have a social security number, a birth certificate, we are a corporation, and that corporation is now tied into the laws of the land of not just, well, in most cases, statutory, dealing with the state law, but we don't understand that we actually can do things that are as living beings that usurp the state law and use the oldest law of the land, which is the Constitution. But when you look up the definition here, human for persons, it says in Black Law's Dictionary, it's a human or living being considered as capable of having rights and of being charged with the duties, while a thing, an artificial being, is the object over which rights may be exercised. So what I learned is that the definition of human comes down to a person that is one is defined as a monster, and also a person that is not allowed to own anything. So when we go around talking about I'm a human being, on the streets, we know what that means. I'm a regular human being created by nature, have natural law, all that stuff. But in legalese determinations, when you get into the court system, when you get into talking about your rights as a citizen, etc., all that's out the window. And you're actually acknowledging that as a human being that you are artificial. Therefore, you are under the jurisdiction and control as a corporation of the U.S. government. All right. So that's just something, a little nugget that I think you all should look into. Because this is something that from the gate we're already put into the system, because as if you're a parent, once your child is born, the first thing they're pushing you for, in addition to their name, is birth certificate. In the birth certificate, they want you to now eventually get their social security number, so you're getting all these things to indoctrinate them and have them as a corporate entity earlier on. And we've been doing it because it was done to us, and we thought, well, if you don't have a social security number, then you can't get a job, you can't work. Think about that mentality. Yes, Sister Ami, yes. Once you are a corporation, once you have a social security number, yes. So think about that. We do these things because we want to be ignorantly voluntarily, right? Because we don't know an alternative. We want to be spokes in the wheel. We are actually saying, look, I want my child to grow up and be in the rat race. We want you to work for someone. We want you to have a job. We want you to go to the school system to get educated, to get trained. And then once you get out of that, to get trained, you're going to have to be in debt because some of that's going to cost if you don't have a scholarship. So we are signing up for all of this. And then once that happens, yes. Give thanks, sister, for putting this on. I got to put that up there. Sister Sherry, this is the sister you want to talk to, slave social security number, slave surveillance number. All right. So, this is what we're talking about here, is that we are put under this spell of thinking this is the right thing to do, when in all actuality, this is the trap. And again, remember I talked about sheeple? I talked about sheeple in our first episode, why we're all programmed to be mediocre. Because the sheep is going to follow the ass in front of it. It is not going to look up and say, hey, we're about to walk over a cliff. It's going to continue walking, following the ass in front of it. So as it falls over the cliff, guess what? You're falling too. Because we don't know how to think and chart our own direction. So we follow because everyone else is doing it. Just because everyone else is doing it doesn't mean it's right. Okay? But this is a clear indication of how these systems are working. And we don't question it because our loved ones are telling us to do it. Not them so much. It's our loved ones. We're not going to question them because we think they have we would think they want what's best for us in mind. So we're not going to question that. Right? So what we also find here, speaking about legalese, is the definition of man. I found this really, really interesting looking this up last night. Certain terminologies, like I talked about, what was this? We did the boule last week, and we were talking about Greece and how Greece only used women for procreation because men decided that their best love in life was to be with a man, or preferably a young boy. That was their choice, to be with younger boys, right? That was the thing, right? And they were not behind closed doors about it. It was very public. Your status was based upon how many young boys you had, right? Women were very rarely seen, and if anything, was because we needed you to make more babies. So it's not ironic that I find this definition in Black law. The definition of man is a human being, a person of the male sex, a male of the human species above the age of puberty. There's no mention at all of women. So even in the legalese, and legalese I talked about is the modern world that is used to describe the legal and technical language used to write laws, wills, and other legal documents. This is where everything is done and governed, right? This is how everything is set up. So in these spaces, I'm finding that they don't even see women as equal or even existence. And what's really, really interesting is if you think about what's happening with AI and how, and I'll be talking about AI in the next coming weeks, is how now they're creating artificial wombs to grow babies, because we know that the eugenics program has backfired on white folk. They're not creating as many babies. So they're going to try to now create a surveillance line, so to speak, of, an incubator, an artificial incubator of babies. So what use will they have for women after that goes in play? Right. And in these artificial babies, you can choose what sex and how you want to look, the color of the eyes, all that kind of stuff. So we're probably going to see less and less choices of female babies, more male babies, and the female species could become obsolete. So again, this is not something to laugh at. This is really something that we need to pay attention to, because this is what they're planning. And remember, I talked about the plans. They're planning these things. People today, they plan it for something 25, 30, 40 years from now. They're not working on, well, I need to get this done for next week. They done already dealt with that. They're decades past what needs to get done next week. So while we are still stuck in this present and trying to exist, they're already planning these things, and then they are dripping it out to us. As we can see, look at this last year and a half, how advanced AI has become. And again, I don't want to harp on it, but I had to bring it up. But think about ChatGPT and NFTs and all this automations. Now we got video that can do voiceovers and create imagery. You can put in text and it can create an image. It can create a movie. People are writing books, having AI do it. People are writing papers. AI has been on the slaughter, just coming hard over this last year and a half. So the things that I'm talking about are already in play, and we're just going to see even more and more of it now. But again, bringing it back to where we're talking about in the legalese space, they don't see women as human beings or living beings. Okay. So we just need to understand that. And for those sisters that are listening, I hope that you take heed in knowing that it's time for us to partner up and have these conversations and figuring out what can we do as an alternative, because honestly, they may be on the verge of trying to eliminate and extinguish the female race. As crazy as that sounds. All right. So moving on forward here, we see that this is now the beginning of the Second America, as mentioned. And at this time, we see that there is the creation of the corporations. Now America is being full throttle with corporations. Everything is going to be, put behind this shield of corporations, right? From this, we find a lot of the 3 and 4 letter corporations starting in 1871, the USDA, FEMA, NIST, NASA, TSA, EPA, SEC, FTC, CDC. You see there, right there, all of them are listed. I don't need to say it, and hundreds more, because now America is incorporated, and with this incorporation, they're looking for a whole nother level of control. Right. So this is where it gets real serious. We start to see now that these corporations are put in place, that now we need to protect what we have and then perpetuate the mindset of making people become cogs in the wheel, so to speak, to make this thing start to work automatically. All right. So I have a couple videos that I want to play for you that are going into the formation of, for instance, the Federal Reserve, and also some particular people that I want you to know about, one being JP Morgan. Check this out.
The Federal Reserve has been the United States central bank since 1913, but is actually its 3rd attempt at central banking. The first Bank of the United States was created in 1791 to help fund the country's debt from the Revolutionary War. This private institution, modeled after the Bank of England, was chartered by Congress in Philadelphia and differed from today's central banks in many ways. For example, The U.S. government owned a 20% share, while private investors, many overseas, owned the rest. And unlike today, it was not solely responsible for the country's money supply. State banks issued their own currency as well. Founding fathers Thomas Jefferson and James Madison opposed, arguing that the Constitution didn't empower Congress to establish such a bank, that it benefited large business over farmers, and led to government control by foreign interests. After all, 70% of the bank was owned by other countries, including Great Britain, the very nation they fought to break free from. When the bank's charter came up for renewal in 1811, it lost by a single vote. The War of 1812 put the United States in another financial crisis. As a result, the Second Bank of the United States was established in 1816. The second bank was like the first bank, only larger, with more money and more control. In 1835, the national debt was paid off by President Andrew Jackson. It's the only time in history that the U.S. has paid off its debt. Jackson disliked the second bank, believing it was the cause of inflation, financial manipulation, and corruption, and that gold and silver was the only true money. Jackson vetoed its renewal in 1836. For almost 80 years, the U.S. went through different eras of banking. After various financial panics around the nation, like the Panic of 1907, in which the New York Stock Exchange dropped almost 50% from the previous year, a call for banking and currency reform was crucial. In 1913, the Federal Reserve was born. This new and powerful institution would regulate banks, manage the nation's money supply, and issue a single new United States currency. In addition, it would stabilize prices by controlling inflation and deflation. But since the inception of the Federal Reserve, the dollar has been inflated almost 2,000%, making the price of goods rise over the years. What will these basic items cost you in the future? The US dollar is steadily eroding. Luckily, there's a way to protect your savings as the dollar continues to fall.
Okay, that's one. Again, talking about the creation of the dollar and the banking system. Here's another one, and we're going to be focusing on the 1907, the Panic of 1907. This really gave a true depiction of how folks were understanding that, hey, this money I'm giving y'all not handling it correctly, and I want to come and take it out. And what, you won't let me take it out? What's going to happen? All right, so check this out. These are short clips. It's not even. Actually, I may have to read some of this to y'all because the captions are kind of hard to read. Starts out good, but I'll read it when we can. Back then, no banks were required to hold a minimum of cash reserves just in case too many people wanted to cash out of once, or they had some sort of contingency. Only federal banks were required to hold a minimum cash reserves. Small town banks 15%. And I'm trying to move this hover thing. I can't really see what's under that. This really sucks. Yeah, we'll read it. Let me see. Reserve banks, city banks 25%. Reserves. Trusts were institutions very popular back then that holding life-saving assets from others or anything but for a longer term. These banks were allowed to hold part of their reserves as a deposit in a larger bank. It's some sort of pyramid of small banks and dependence of bigger banks that was very complicated or reverse in case of a hurry if they needed sudden liquidity. Then in Alaska was founded a new copper mine, so price of copper decreased. This occasion as a huge, and I'm sorry, y'all, it's hard to read this, huge sell-off of shares of United Copper Company were many blah 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 blah. I can't read this. Yeah, sorry, y'all. There's some good things in here and there's some bad things in here. They could have did better editing this. Charles Morris and associate Charles Barney, the president of the third largest trust in USA, had the worst problems as they had put a lot of money in this company and the trust was about to collapse. People knew this and they started to run all at once to take the money out. Panic did also spread to others. Their trust, whatever, we missed that. Now the second Russell Trust called the trust government was also in danger. Again, I apologize. This video is really informative, but some stuff was hard to read. The panic affected to banks as well, and the entire economy of the United States was in serious danger. Back then, money couldn't just be printed out of nothing and was pegged to the gold. So the government needed to borrow gold from Europe, but ships took weeks to arrive to America. So again, whereas today they just print money out of nowhere, back then you can't print money unless you got something to back it by. If they didn't have a gold, they had to borrow it. So that's how they started being indebted to these other countries. And they needed the money right now. So they got to panic. They can't print any money, but they need collateral. They don't have it. So, what are they going to do? So then they came for help to get the great banker in America at that time, named John Pierpont Morgan, better known also as J.P. Morgan. So he bailed everybody out. U.S. Treasury gave Morgan $25 million of the time from a surplus from federal import tariffs, but this wasn't enough to calm the panic. Desperate banks demanded their money loans they have from their brokers, which caused I'm sorry, y'all, I can't read this. They could have did a better way of doing this. I apologize for even showing this to you. I should have vetted it better. On October 24th, 1907, the president of the New York Stock Exchange informed Morgan that needed 25 million more immediately, or basically it would fall that day. The stock would fall that day. So it needed $25 million that day, or the stock would fall that day. He managed to get $25 million, but despite out at all call margins kept rising up 150%. So he needed to take out another loan. He needed another 10 million. He gave him 25 million, but his demand was still high. He needed an additional 10 million. The panic was still out there and spreading, and Europeans refused to give credit to the banks during the panic. So you got the banks, the Wall Street is about to collapse, and they're asking for money or they're asking for a loan, but they don't have anything to back the loan by. And they say, well, look, if you don't give us the loan, the stock is going to crash. And they're like, so what? We're going to hold out because, remember, y'all want to be independent. What do y'all want us for? Right. And you don't want to sign under our terms, all these wars we have, because you don't want to pay us the interest we want. So why should we help you out? New York clearinghouse had trouble. And I'm not even going to try to read that, y'all. I apologize. You can read it. You better than me. Morgan needed to convince. So Morgan was the one that basically was behind there trying to bring the money. And it took a month to get everything sorry, y'all. Can't read that either. He did the voiceover. It was really nice. So JP Morgan is up to this date one of the largest financial companies in the United States based in New York. In essence, it was J.P. Morgan that went in and funded roughly $25 to $35 million to help the stop the stock market from basically going under. Then there's another one. Let me remove that. Stop me. Yeah, it's too bad. It's not too bad to read. It's a very educational piece. So give thanks, sister. And then Sister Sherry says Robert Barron's. Yep, that is definitely a term. You should always look that up. Robert Barron's actual term. It talks about the different families behind these things. Let me continue with the last clip that I wanted on this piece. J.P. Morgan.
In this video, we uncover the controversial life of John Pierpont Morgan, the man who redefined the banking industry and left a lasting impact on the world economy. He was the one who bailed out the U.S. monetary system in the Panic of 1907, but more on this later. Often referred to as J.P. Morgan, he was a dominant figure in the banking industry during the late 19th and early 20th century, and his influence can still be felt in the modern financial world. But was he really the greatest financier, or was he just another greedy capitalist? Let's find out. John Pierpont Morgan was born in Hartford, Connecticut in 1837. He was the son of a prominent banker and was exposed to the world of finance from a very young age. He quickly made a name for himself as a skilled businessman. And by the age of 40, he had established his own investment banking firm, J.P. Morgan and Company. One of Morgan's most controversial deals was his involvement in the Panic of 1907. At that time, the financial system was in turmoil, and many banks were on the verge of collapse. Morgan, who was at the helm of one of the most powerful banks in the country, stepped in to stabilize the situation. He convinced other banks to pool their resources and offered to buy up troubled securities to prevent a market crash. While this move was successful in preventing a widespread financial disaster, it also gave Morgan even more power and influence in the industry. Morgan's power and influence didn't come without controversy. Many accused him of using his wealth and connections to manipulate the financial system for his own gain. For example, he was heavily involved in the creation of the Federal Reserve, which many see as a tool for the banking elite to control the economy. He was also criticized for his involvement in the U.S. Steel Corporation, which was accused of using monopolistic practices to drive up prices and stifle competition. Despite the controversies surrounding Morgan's career, there is no denying that he was a highly successful businessman. His investments and financial dealings made him one of the richest men in history, and his legacy can still be felt today. But was his success at the expense of the working class and the American people? So, was John Pierpont Morgan the greatest financier or just another greedy capitalist? That's for you to decide. While his impact on the financial world cannot be denied, there is no denying that he was a controversial figure who used his wealth and power to manipulate the system. His story serves as a cautionary tale about the dangers of unchecked power and influence in the world of finance.
Yeah, so before I continue, this episode is being brought to you by my summer workshops that I'm going to be creating this summer. If you haven't known about it, I'm going to play this real quick for you.
Discover the world of STEAM with Mbwe Ishangi's engaging online course. From slave ships to steamships. STEAM stands for science, technology, engineering, arts, and math, fields that drive innovation and creativity. Perfect for families age 13 to 75. This course brings these disciplines to life through history, hands-on projects, interactive lessons, and real-world applications. You'll explore robotics, coding, art integration, and more, all from the comfort of your home. Sign up today and reignite the creative genius inside for every generation. Visit CryptoWokeMovement.com for details. This summer, unlock your potential with our summer workshop. Join our dynamic online courses, designed for everyone aged 13 to 75, starting June 1st through August 3rd with Mbwe Ishangi of the CryptoWoke Financial Sustainability Movement. Dive into financial education for adults or gear up for success with financial education for student athletes. Teens and young adults can build their financial future, and everyone can explore the wonders of STEAM. For just $149.99, you get access and can invite 3 friends or family members to join you or choose their own course. That's for people for one low price. Workshops start June 1st and run through August 3rd. Sign up now and invest in your future.
All right, give thanks for letting me put that in there for you all. Just again, let you know the workshops, the type of work that we're doing here. So yeah, let's keep this ball rolling. Let's get back into what we're talking about here. So we're seeing the formation of these banks. We're learning about J.P. Morgan and his role in basically getting, bailing America out of the panic of 1907. This, of course, gave him power. That's why you see J.P. Morgan everywhere financially. You got to know the people behind these corporations, these businesses. How did they become about? What are the things that they've done? And yeah, they might think that he was a great guy with what he did, but obviously he did it for nefarious reasons, for power and control. If you look up the the History Channel has a series that was put out, I believe, in the early 2000s. It's called The Men Who Built America. I definitely advocate for you to check that, look it up. I think it's even on YouTube. You can see it. It's a great, amazing series that talks about the 4 men behind the formation of the third industrial revolution that happened in the early 1900s. J.P. Morgan being one of them, John Rockefeller, Andrew Carnegie as another one. And it's a very interesting series to check out. But anyway, so we see this is happening, the panic of 1907. We had the instability of the banking system, the Federal Reserve Note, which was then next. It was the third installation that was mentioned to create a monetary system. And we find now the creation of the model that we have been using ever since. And so here we find, if you're not familiar with these families, these are the big rich. They're called the big rich. The big rich is comprised of Johnny Rockefeller, Baron Rothschild, and again, not just this person, but their families, their bloodlines, again, because they're inheriting these things now, even today. Paul Warburg, Jacob Schiff, and J.P. Morgan. We find that with the formation of the Federal Reserve, we find that these men came together, decided that they were going to find a way to be global overlords of the monetary system with no affiliation to any type of country, right? And so they met in Jekyll Island in 1910. This is also where we see that America wanting to break away from Britain, or I'm sorry, people being kicked out of America to come over to America and create their own colonies. We find that they actually ended up doing the very same thing, modeled after the very same people they were complaining against. So less than 100 years from leaving Britain, they replicated the Bank of England. And infamously, it's said that that Mayor Amschel Rothschild had said this, that he wasn't so much wanted to be the overlord, so to speak, of the military or the government. He said, let us control the money of a country and we care not who makes its laws. This is the maxim of the House of Rothschilds, and it is the foundation principle of European banks. They don't care who the lawmaker is. Why? Because they bought them. They buy the lawmakers. You're gonna do what we want to do anyway, or you're gonna get this bread, or you're gonna be dead. It's one of those two. So they don't have to be the face. This is why I tell folks that whether it be Trump, Biden, Obama, whoever else you wanted to name under the sun that's going to be the so-called president, if the president is so-called king of this country, then why is there an opportunity for him to be taken out every 4 years? The king rules forever. So these basically said, these people are appointed, they're bought off, these politicians, and not just on the highest level, but even on the local level to climb up that ladder. Yes, they said if you can't beat them, then join them. Exactly. That they are telling you that, we don't care about being the face. We actually want to be the Wizard of Oz. We want to be behind closed scenes. We don't want you to know who we are. And we'll have you do our bidding. And if anything goes down, you're the one that takes the fall, not us. Right? So what they also added to the 14th Amendment was that Congress shall have power to lay and collect taxes on income. So we find it what the Federal Reserve created, that this is where the taxes came. We weren't paying taxes before then, and now we're paying taxes. And unless you state otherwise, if you know about Tax Revenue Code 61A. So these are things that now they are now putting things in legal jargon, and they're not going to tell you, but if you know it, they can't say that you're wrong. But because they don't promote it as such, most people will not think about it, won't even know that it exists. They'll just follow suit because, again, they've created a system of sheeple. People are going to do what everybody else is doing and not question. All right. So I'm going to speak about Jekyll Island real quick, and I'm going to read a couple pages from my book, Pot to Piss In. I'm going to talk about Jekyll Island. And I felt that this was a good piece to talk about because, again, we need to know about how this thing was formatted and how it was created. All right. So it says here, on the night of November 22nd, 1910, a group of newspaper reporters stood disconsolately in the railway station at Hoboken, New Jersey. They had just watched a delegation of the nation's leading financiers leave the station on a secret mission. It would be years before they discovered what the mission was, and even they would not understand that the history of the United States underwent a drastic change after that night in Hoboken. Those that were in attendance to this, that got on that train, was Nelson W. Aldrich, who was a senator, Republican senator; A.P.I. Andrews, who was assistant secretary treasurer; Frank Vanderflip, who was the president of National Bank of New York; Henry P. Dawson, J.P. Morgan Company; Charles Norton, president of First National Bank of New York; Benjamin Strong, lieutenant of J.P. Morgan; and Paul Warburg, banking house of Kuhn, Loeb and Company in New York, all traveled by train to Jekyll Island. So let me just read a little bit more going into this. So why this meeting? If you know anything about these elite families, in order to create the change they wanted, they had to first disrupt the current situation. The perfect storm to create was the Panic of 1907, also known as the 1907 Bankers' Panic or Knickerbocker Crisis. This was a financial crisis where people saw the New York Exchange fall almost 50% from its peak in the previous year. Panic naturally ensued, leading to numerous runs and bank runs in trust companies. How it was planned, Eustace Mullins, stated it best. It was pointed out that there was no exhaustion of credit, as in 1893, not any currency famine, as in Panic 1907, when clearinghouse certificates were resorted to, not a collapse of commodity prices, as in 1920. What then caused the crash? The people had purchased stocks at high prices and expected the prices to continue to rise. The prices had to come down, and they did. It was obvious to the economists and bankers gathered over their brandy and cigars at the Hotel Astor that the people were at fault. Certainly, the people had made a mistake in buying overpriced securities, but they had been talked into it by every leading citizen, from the President of the United States on down. So politically, they were told to buy these things, and they knew that if they did that, it would cause this surplus. Every magazine in national circulation, every big newspaper, and every prominent banker, economist, and politician had joined in the big confidence game of urging people to buy those overpriced securities. When the Federal Reserve Bank of New York raised its rate to 6% in August 1929, people began to get out of the market. And it turned into a panic, which drove the prices of securities down far below their natural levels, as in previous panics. This enabled both Wall Street and foreign operations in the know to pick up blue-chipped and gilt-edged securities for a fraction of their real value. So what do? They get people to buy, and then it overbuys. It's too much to buy, and then they drop the price, and now everybody starts selling. And when everybody starts selling out of the panic, then someone comes in and buys at a lower price. So when the Federal Reserve Bank raised its rate to 6% in 1929 from October 24th into November, a total of $160 billion had been lost to the American people by the way of the market in less than 1 month. $160 billion in 1929, y'all. All right, lost by average people. So a panic was inevitable, but it was orchestrated to set the stage for what was already planned to happen next a decade earlier. Remember, they planned these things. After the Panic of 1907, the following year, President Theodore Roosevelt signed into law a bill creating the National Monetary Commission to stabilize the nation's monetary system in an effort to rebuild trust. A few years later, the likes of Republican Senator Nelson W. Aldrich, the people that I mentioned before, Frank Vanderflip, Henry Dawson, etc., they all, and Paul Warburg, an immigrant from Germany who had just joined the banking house of Kuhn Loeb and Company, all traveled by train to Jekyll Island, Georgia, an island purchased by some years before by an exclusive group of millionaires led by J.P. Morgan to draft the plan for control of the money and credit of the people of America. Aldrich, the only one whose profession was not in banking, was there to ensure this wicked scheme would be written in a way to easily get passed by Congress, as well as seen as coming from the newly stealth created National Monetary Commission. Excuse me. It is here, financial writer and later founder of Forbes magazine, Bertie Charles Forbes, said Aldrich, quote, had confided in Henry, Frank, Paul, and Piot that he was to keep them locked up at Jekyll Island out of the rest of the world until they had evolved and compiled a scientific currency system for the United States. The real birth of the president of the Federal Reserve System, present reserve system. Warburg is the link that binds the Aldrich system and present system together. He, more than any man, has made the system possible as a working reality. To avoid the negative perception of the term central bank brought, Warburg decided Federal Reserve System was covertly better, deceiving the masses to think it wasn't a central bank or a system owned by private individuals who profit from ownership or shares fueled by America's circulation of cash and credit. All this gives the illusion it's controlled by Congress and answerable to the government who's supposed to represent the people of their republic. But cryptically, unbeknownst to the masses, the directors are chosen by this secretive group. The Federal Board of Governors are appointed by the President of the United States, who himself is appointed and controlled by the Federal Advisory Council, a group of 12 Federal Reserve banks unknown to the public. Yep, your vote doesn't count. Well, at least since politicians started being bought, beginning with the election of Woodrow Wilson, who served as the 28th president from 1913 to 1921. At the core of the monetary reform is the Aldrich Plan. Because there was, again, so much mistrust with the banking system and mainly Wall Street, the meeting at Jekyll Island was held in secret because the participants knew that any plan they generated would be rejected automatically in the House of Representatives because it was associated with Wall Street. The Aldrich Plan called for a system of 15 regional central banks called National Reserve Associations. Their actions would be ran by a national board of commercial bankers. What the Reserve Association would do was make emergency loans to member banks, creating money, quote unquote, by way of fractional lending system to provide an elastic currency that could be exchanged equally for demand deposits and would act as a fiscal agent or taxable income for the federal government, enabling the beneficiaries of the plan, the families of the Rothschilds, Warburgs, Jacob Schiffs, Rockefellers, Harrimans, and Morgans, and all the others known as the big rich, to be the sole stock owners. This would enable them to access to the nation's fiat and credit resources where they could use the credit of the U.S. government for their own profit, an amount tethered to the U.S. national debt of which you and I are on the hook to pay by way of FICA, taxes, and interest affixed to loans. So now there was a couple more pages here. Now there was some opposition, but each one failed because by then whoever needed to be bought off to ensure the big rich's plan had already had their palms greased. In fact, Charles Lindbergh's attempt to impeach the Federal Reserve Board of Governors in February 1917 wasn't the first. There were two more. Representative Thomas McFadden attempted to impeach numerous officials in 1933, and Representative Henry Gonzalez introduced an impeachment resolution in H.R. Res 101, along with H.R. Res 102 against Federal Chair Paul Volcker and 10 other members. So there were people trying to fight the situation, but it wasn't enough of them. So Warburg is trusted as the mind behind the Federal Reserve Act, camouflaged as the Aldrich Plan after it wasn't received well. What folks don't know is the real mastermind behind both plans was none other than Baron Alfred Rothschild. One should know this plan was strikingly adherent to his great-grandfather, Mayor Amschel Rothschilds, who said, "Let me issue and control the nation's money, and I care not who writes the laws." And as much as Warburg is known as the chief orchestrator of the Federal Reserve, he could not have done it without Colonel Edward Mandell House of Texas, who served as an advisor to President Wilson. Mullins said, House's phrase, "take away the power of a president," is significant because later presidents found themselves helpless to change the direction of the government because they did not have the power to change the composition of the Federal Reserve Board to obtain a majority on it during the president's term in office. So the president goes in there, and if he want to say he's going to do all these things and he gets in there, there's already a plan. And if you try to do anything to deviate against it, you're outnumbered and you could even be assassinated. All right? Yeah, I'm going that far. So soon after they left Jekyll Island, within weeks, there was this pro-propaganda based campaign pushing the Aldrich Plan, where select national banks were mandated to contribute $5 million. So they made all of the banks contribute $5 million to aid in convincing the public this plan should be written into law. Then Governor of New Jersey, Woodrow Wilson, became the face of the Aldrich Plan. During the Panic of 1907, he was quoted as saying, "All this trouble could be all averted if we appointed a committee of 6 or 7 public-spirited men like J.P. Morgan to handle the affairs of our country." So he's already a bought man. He's not even president yet. And he's telling you, if you want to get this thing resolved, J.P. Morgan is the man to do it. This was a strategic, subtle way of planting the seed so that what was already in work. Gary Allen's The Rockefeller's File book discusses shrewd tactics by the big rich families who used to ensure success in their plans, playing both sides of the fence. So they applied this concept to everything: politics, war, and finance. See, while they knew the Aldrich Plan would not go over well because it reeked full of the schematic smell of a plan that would benefit the Wall Street bankers of New York, the Federal Reserve Act plan would serve as an alleged counter, even though this plan was really no different. Because the Republicans lost control of the House in 1910, which followed with them losing the Senate and the presidency in 1912, the Aldrich Plan was never implemented in name. The outline, however, became a model for a bill that eventually was adopted called the Federal Reserve Act. This act is born from the mind of Warburg, serving as the same central bank whose shares would be owned by private stockholders, again, the big rich, who used this credit of the U.S. government for their own profit, having control of the nation's money and credit coffer. The same plan Congress didn't want in its Aldrich Plan. They were able to do this by getting the bill passed during the Christmas break of 1913, after more than 40 important differences remained unsettled in the House and the Senate, given the perception it would be weeks before it could be brought up for another vote. While many congressmen critical of the act left Washington for the holiday with the assurance the bill wouldn't be dealt with until after the new year, in one single day, December 21st, the ones in the know who stayed behind diabolically resolved those 40 differences and brought to vote that Monday the 22nd, where the bill passed both the House and the Senate with no opposition there to stop it because everybody left. To cement this deceit, the national media painted this as the perfect Christmas present the country needed to bring perceived stability and trust that the country was rounding the corner on the atrocities of war, depression, and banking arbitrage had brought. December 24th, 1913, the New York Times headline read, "Wilson signs the currency bill." The subheader projected prosperity to be free and, quote, "will help every class." None of the real writers of the bill from Jekyll Island were present at the signing, giving the perception of President Wilson as a dictator of all finances of the nation, when in reality, it was the Federal Reserve Board of Governors, whose terms last 10 years and not 4 like the president, who advised the president's instruction. All this might have remained hearsay had Wilson's guilty conscience not eaten at him. Before his death, closing out here, in 1924, it said that he had regrets. Wilson allegedly said, I am a most unhappy man. I have unwittingly ruined my country. A great industrial nation is controlled by its system of credit. Our system of credit is concentrated. The growth of the nation, therefore, in all our activities are in the hands of a few men. We have come to be one of the worst ruled, one of the most completely controlled and dominated governments in the civilized world, no longer a government by free opinion, no longer a government by conviction and the vote of the majority, but a government by the opinion and duress of a small group of dominant men. On cue, the following year, on November 16, 1914, the Federal Reserve banks were open for business. It's here Paul Warburg said in elation, this date may be considered as the 4th of July in the economic history of the United States. Warburg, a German immigrant who became a citizen of this country in 1911, only to conspire against his people, officially just 3 years later by fathering a monetary system that has us pay them their taxes. I mean, if you take the word theirs, the THEIRS, it's the, break it up, the IRS, and an unpayable national debt that binds our bloodlines to continued arbitrage, poverty, war, and planned recessions, while using a national holiday to mock this illusion of independence we think we all have. Warburg is war personified, but he wasn't the only one. This was their creed. The big rich plan to ensure their future bloodlines benefit. Like all society's secrets, this Jekyll Island syndicate represented 1/6 of the total wealth of the world, and membership was by inheritance only. At the top of this chain are the descendants of Nathaniel Mayer and James Rothschilds. All right, so I just wanted to read a few of those from my book. Those are pages 85 to 91, and the Pataphysian goes into the formation of, the monetary system, the Federal Reserve note, Jekyll Island, the whole nine, because we, again, don't know that people got together and decided what they were going to do and create the fate that we have been living in. Let me just go back to what the chat has been lit. I love, appreciate it. Let me see here. Brother Gerard said, was thinking about the STEAM program to jump on, but after tonight's podcast, I think I've been swayed to get the financial literacy boot camp. Absolute. You can do this one. You can do them all if you want, preferably. Let me see what else we got here. Sister Kendra, national, built on lies. Exactly. Sister me, I jokingly tell people I haven't voted since I was 18, and it's true. I didn't know everything I know now, but I know voting was a joke because the president is a puppet. Facts. And I'm the same. I haven't voted since Jesse Jackson. What was that, 1980 something, 1988? I think it was. Yeah, your voting doesn't count. And real quickly on the voting thing, the Voting Rights Act, you have to understand the Voting Rights Act bill that was passed in 1965. If you're not aware, the Voting Rights Act bill is renewed every 25 years. And there's no bill in legislation for any ethnic group other than for Black people to give us permission every 25 years to vote again. So every 25 years, they have to pass through law to give us permission to vote. Now, we had Obama in office for 8 years. He could have at least did that one and abolished that act. But did he? No. So according to my calculations, 2032, the Voting Rights Act bill is going to come up again. And the point is that they can decide whether they're going to sit there and decide, we want to give Black people the ability to vote. No other ethnic race has to go through this but us. But again, we'll sit there and we'll post on social media. I did my part. I voted. You need to vote. Blah, 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 blah. Vote. Understand, if you know anything about the Trilateral Commission, I just read excerpts from my book that talks about these governments, these families already choose who the president is. This Biden-Trump thing is already done. And they already are working on, if they don't already know who's next, if they're going to stay alive. But they're grooming their next puppet to keep their things in place. So, we need to understand this is a whole game, a whole game. Yeah, so what else was said here? Gerard, President Wilson sold out America. He sure did. And he felt guilty about it. But he ain't say no names, though. That's the thing. He didn't say no names. Absolutely shameful. For real. Changing the players without changing the game is an act of futility. Absolutely. That's how they keep things in perpetuity. And they usually are related. Yeah, I mean, you're going to have the nepotism. You're going to have that. So, getting back so we can, the next piece, and then we can get ready to close out, because I know this is heavy information. I'm hoping that you're enjoying this. If you are, if you have not already, please hit the like button. If you haven't subscribed, please do. And when this thing is done, I appreciate you sharing this. Share it on your page, share it with your network. We're trying to build this and get this conversation. This isn't about me. It's about the topic itself. And I would love for us to be able to talk more about these things, because it is a conversation that we need to be having. We don't talk about finances. We don't talk about wealth. We don't talk about politics. We don't talk about those 10 areas of people activity I mentioned enough. And, if we can have all these get-togethers and cookouts maybe we can, if we can't do it there, then maybe we can do it virtually in these spaces, in these podcast spaces. All right. So let me go back to where we were. All right. So let me share. All right. So coming back to the timeline. So we talk about, so this is where it really gets interesting, right? Really, really, really gets interesting. We talk about the numbers. So when we talk about the first 100 years since the Federal Reserve was created, we're talking about the decline of America and how we've become an indebted nation. All right. In 1913, the top tax bracket, America was in the 7% of the top tax bracket. In 2013, dropped down, went up to the 40% bracket. When we talk about revenues, the revenues that used to be made, this is what they're making. This is what America, these rich families are making. They were making $16.6 billion in 1930. This is billions of dollars in 1913. I mean, it's crazy. Today they're making $2.7 trillion, these families. We talk about the total number of 1040s that are filed. Back then in 1913, it was only 358,000. Today, there's over 140,000 people, 140 million people that are filing taxes. So again, this is something that creates money for these families. And we talked about the Fed is owned by those big rich families that go in there and pull money as they please. This is how they create their wealth. We're thinking this money is being shared with us, when in actuality, this is the bigger bank is these rich families. So we're depositing funds and they're getting an annual base of roughly $10 billion a year from taxes alone. So this is money that we're giving to them freely. And we're told that, well, we're supposed to pay taxes. And if we don't, we'll go to jail because no one wants to be like Wesley Snipes. But the point is that we don't know the law. Okay. But we're beginning to learn it now. Right. So this is what I mentioned before. I showed you before about what Woodrow Wilson said. Having that regret, realizing he sold us out, saying I'm a most unhappy man. I have unwittingly ruined my country. No longer government of free opinion, etc. We had read this already. So this is letting you know, he, although on his deathbed felt guilty, didn't really leave any names, just like how the Boule does, right? They don't tell you who, they just say they. Don't tell you who, right? But this is now the timeline as it moves on. We're seeing how they put these things into play, because now that we have the Federal Reserve put in place, we had a depression in 1929. 4 years later, the U.S. government decides that, you know what, because before, when we had an issue at Wall Street and we didn't have any collateral and we needed money, so how are we going to get, we needed money, but we didn't have anything to collateralize it with. We didn't have any gold or bullion to give to England or a lender. They decided, we're going to take it from our own people. So May 1st, 1933, under President Roosevelt, he basically puts under order that everyone that owns any type of gold or silver, primarily gold, I think it was, that they are mandated by the U.S. government to turn it in. This is how they created Fort Knox. So they're telling you, if you had any gold, you had to turn it in and they'll give you a Federal Reserve note in exchange. And you were mandated, meaning it wasn't an opposition. It wasn't a choice. You had to do it or you would receive jail time and you would be fined. So they stole the gold from the people on May 1st. It was illegal to have gold in your possession, but they give you a Federal Reserve note in exchange. And that Federal Reserve note was worth nothing, was worth the piece of paper or cotton that was made up. All right. So now we have that theft of the U.S. government stealing from its own people so they could put it in their own reserves and they could use it to house the big rich. Right. Then we find that the Social Security Act happened in 1935, which is supposed to be that. We'll talk about that in a second, about how that's supposed to be the money they're going to give back to us that we're never going to get, or it's depleting as we speak. But then we see that in 1971, they come back and say, you know what? We're not going back to dollar by gold anymore. So Nixon on August 15, 1971, gets on TV and says, hey, we're coming out with a new currency called fiat. This fiat currency is going to be based off it's going to be backed by oil. Now, the oil isn't in America. The oil is based in foreign countries, primarily places like Saudi Arabia. All right. So what happened before they made this announcement is that Nixon and parties involved went over to Arabia to get them to convince them that if they were going to sell their oil barrels, to only receive payment in US dollars, not in any other currency. So they convinced them that. Now, how did they convince them? Obviously, it wasn't just a handshake and some words. They probably gave them some guns, some intelligence, some other type of control for them to want to give up and say, because they didn't have to accept USD, but they decided to. So they obviously they made the package welcoming enough. And when that happened, then they created the petrodollar, which is now backed by oil, and the gold and bullion was no longer backed by the dollar. What we saw from that is then the dollar shot down in value, right? So that actually enabled, because even though the dollar shot down in value, this is when we started seeing America printing dollars at will for no reason other than to have the demand overseas, because now you got other countries that are buying dollars, buying gold, buying oil from Saudi Arabia and countries like that, and they couldn't use their own currency, so they had to convert it to USD. So that meant that now the United States is not printing money that are going to be used overseas. So they had excess, and then when you have excess, you're going to have inflation. The value is going to go down. So this is why we started seeing now the dollar depleting. Today, I think it's been said that the dollar is worth less than I think 53 cents or something like that, or less than 35 cents, something like that. It's not even worth $1. This was the beginning of the inflated dollar and its value decline. Okay, then we see from here the results of those deeds. 10 years later, we start to see that the national debt of the United States tops $1 trillion on October 22nd, 1981. So the national debt is $1 trillion. All right. Now, that's nothing compared to today, because today, well, first of all, from 1776 to 1981, so that's 204 years it took for America to amass $1 trillion in debt. That's 204 years. Okay. So that's not, I mean, $1 trillion is a lot of money, but $204 years rather, that's pretty. I don't know. I don't want to say that's a good number, but the point is that when you look at in contrast, it's going to blow your mind. So January 3rd of this year, America toppled $34 trillion. $34 trillion, y'all. America owes somebody's $34 trillion and ticking. The startling thing is, as I mentioned, up until 1981, it was only $1 trillion in debt. So in 42 years, so again, 204 years to get to $1 trillion. In 42 years, it amassed an additional $33.2 trillion. Think about that. Expeditiously, so much more money in debt over the last 42 years since I've been alive and earlier has America created this debt, right? And they have the audacity to want to give me a credit score, all right, how much money I may owe somebody. But a lot of this debt is attributed to the rise in inflation, the lower of the value of the dollar, because it's everywhere around the world, and therefore, if it's in excess, the value is going lower. The outsourcing of America, that America doesn't create much anymore. Everything they've gotten, from jobs to commodities and mechanics, electronics, all that kind of stuff, is outsourced, mainly coming from Asia. It's military. Its military has been, overinflated, having bases all around the world, dictating wars, trying to so-called protect their interest. That comes at a cost that is put onto the taxpayer, right? The interesting thing is, and if you want to see this, you can go to a site called usdebtclock.org. And I wonder if I can share. Let's see if it'll let me share this real quick. Yeah, I think it's going to let me share. I want to show you all. The current debt of America right now. Let me go back here. This is just to give you an idea. Blah, 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 blah. Yes. It's going to make me do this. Okay. 1 second. I just want you to see this. If you go to the site called usdebtclock.org, it's really interesting to see how much America owes. And it's making me do these permissions, and maybe I won't be able to do it. But if you can right now, I thought it was going to let me go in. It's coming up. Just give me hold like 1 second here. Yes, let me do that. Boom, boom. Okay, boom, boom. All right. I do the need. Oh, they're gonna make me quit. Okay, I'm gonna do that later then. All right, so it won't let me show it, y'all. I should have did that prior to. But if you go to the site right here, called let me get out of here. Get out of here. Not now. Okay. All right, so I'm not gonna share. I just want to make sure that you all can still see my screen. Everything is fine. Let me make sure, look at my monitors, because I don't want to lose what I already have. All right, we're good. All right. So but let me go back. So if you go to us.debtclock.org, you will see that currently we are at a loss of the national debt is $34 trillion, 34,700,000,000, or basically $34.8 trillion as of today. Okay. So, and you look through that site, it'll show you all the other things that are owed, and the checks and balances of America's economy. It's really interesting to look at that site because it gives you a whole rundown of things that are owed, and it's crazy, these numbers, right? So the question is that I had was, who does America owe these monies to? Who owes who do they owe $34 trillion to? Because we never hear about it. We hear about the deficit, but like, who is it owed to, right? So I found out that China and Japan are owed anywhere between $1.5 to $2 trillion each. United Kingdom, $500 million, if not a little bit more. Ireland, nearly $500 million. Luxembourg, the same, right? The rest of the $31 trillion is owed to, drum roll, us. It's owed to us, y'all. The rest of the money is owed to us in the form of Social Security. However, they have no plans of paying that. They have no plans of paying that. So allegedly, it's supposed to be through our Social Security. That's supposed to be here when you work a certain amount of years and you retire. Well, we're finding that this amount of money that is a coffer that they access to at will all the time to fund wars. Obviously, when they fund wars, they go start one, and then they come back and then want to have countries pay them to rehabilitate the areas as well. So this is the acts of the military. This is Gary Allen, Rockefeller Files book, talks about how they play both sides of the fence. They will, in a prize fight, put money on both fighters because they can, so they're not going to lose, right? And this is the situation that we see what's happening now, is that America, because of the money that they're pulling from us in our retirement, we're seeing that it is predicted that Social Security may be depleted by the year 2033, within the next 9 years, right when I'm supposed to retire. So, again, your money's not safe where you're putting it. It's not safe in your bank. It's not safe in Wall Street. It's not safe in your 401k. It's not safe in your U.S. bonds, and your Social Security may not deliver. And if it does, it's going to give you a fraction of what you were getting, right? So we're just seeing that this game, yes, as Sister Kitchen said, this nation is built on lies. It's built on lies. And because of that, we need to do something more than just knowing that. What can we do to, lower or buffer the blow, lessen the blow that we're going to receive, because we're all going to get hit. But Gerard says the American-Israel economy seems to be operating through a veil of smoke and mirrors and backroom handshake agreements all the time, and not just them, all of them. Sister Cassie says Biden is sending billions to Ukraine and we are in debt to others. Make it make sense. Exactly. Exactly. And the money that they're sending is our money. It's the money that we work for. It's money that we generate, that we create. But again, we're none the wiser. So, that's the problem. Why are we still living here? Yeah, Alpha Raga. Yes, exactly. We need to think about global. I mean, really do. We need to think about Exodus. What can we do next? Because we don't need to be here for this. Right. So what we're seeing is that America has split financial personalities, bipolar personalities. It started out, again, we saw that these were people that were being uh, victimized, and they wanted to break off and do their own thing, and they wanted to be left alone, and they even fought for it. They fought for the independence, and then they enslaved their own people, their own descendants of the same land, and then a select few infiltrated and decided that we were going to create a global conglomerate or syndicate, and we were going to use this to control the entire world, with America being at the focal point. So we've seen that America has gone from a decentralized government banking system that was meant that created low inflation, low national debt, balanced supply and demand, to what we have been experiencing since the Federal Reserve note and Federal Reserve government has been created, a centralized banking system with high inflation, high national debt, and imbalanced supply and demand. This is what we are experiencing today. And it really does make you think about the type of world we're living in. And it makes you wonder too is, as I close this segment out, is what's next? What is next, y'all? Because, we've been talking about the past, and, we can't really do much about that. So what's happening now? What's coming? Well, last year we had the Fed Now was created, or it was launched. And by definition, the Fed Now is an instant payment service developed by the Federal Reserve for depository institutions in the United States, which allows individuals and businesses to send and receive money. The service launched on July 20th, 2023. Banks will be able to build products on top of the FedNow platform by 2020, and by 2024, hundreds of banks and credit unions were reported utilizing this service. So all this is America. If you know about cryptocurrency, we're not going to talk about it, but briefly, if you know about cryptocurrency, Bitcoin, Ethereum, etc., these were decentralized monetary systems created that had a global effect. It didn't matter where you were, you could use this money in exchange. We find that America wanted to get in on it, and they were like, look, we can't, how can y'all have this, making this money? Y'all independent. No, we need to make money. We need to be the ones that are in control of everything. And that's where you'll find that, and if you look over the histories, the past few years, even last decade, we've seen an up and down relationship with cryptocurrency. We found banking systems that, were adamant about against cryptocurrencies. We see Jamie Dimon, the CEO of Chase, who once said that, if any of my employees bought Bitcoin, I would fire them immediately. That same night that he made that statement, that night his whole company, Chase, bought a whole bunch of cryptocurrency, and they came out 3 years later with a blockchain infrastructure. So we see that, Americans that are the elites, that are the greedy, don't want average people like you and I to prosper. They want us to be under the boots of their, have their necks on our boots. I mean, their boots on our necks. So with that said, they want to be in control of everything. They want to be paid first. They want to be the first in line and give you the breadcrumbs. They don't want to be the other way around. So now we see that Fed Now is no different than your PayPals, your Zells, etc. And they're even saying, well, hey, yeah, you can still use PayPal and Zelle. You can use it with ours. Well, why does PayPal and Zelle want to need them when they're doing fine just without them? But again, they're going to find some way to enforce this because it's a governmental institution, a government institutional move. So I want to play just a couple more clips here to give you an idea of what Fed Now is, and then also talk about how something has been prophesized before. We've seen it in the movies. If y'all go to the movies, man, it's not just for entertainment. A lot of this is for prophecy, and it's happening. So this is just to give you an idea of what is coming up. Let me make sure I'm doing the right one. All right. Let me see. Nope, not that one. Here we go.
bank account. The Federal Reserve announcing it has gone live with its new FedNow instant payment system, a system that should allow households and businesses to send payments and receive money immediately without those troubling 3-day holds on checks and waiting for payments to clear in the sender's account and waiting for the bank to open on Monday or after a holiday. The FedNow system is an instant payment system. It's available 24/7, 365 days a year. To begin with, 35 banks and 16 service providers have already signed up. Those banks include things like JP Morgan and Wells Fargo, as well as smaller credit unions and other banks. Unclear if the banks are going to charge for this instant payment. They are charged, but they may or may not pass that along to consumers. Fed Chair Jay Powell saying in a press release, over time, as more banks choose to use this tool, the benefits to individuals and businesses will include enabling a person to immediately receive a paycheck or a company to instantly access funds when an invoice is paid. This doesn't eliminate the PayPals and the Venmos of the world or Zelle. Theoretically, they could use the FedNow system, which is a bank-to-bank system, to send payments, but it's unclear, guys, if those services now face a new challenge from banks of all sizes that can offer similar services. Sarah?
So isn't that already happening? I mean, don't we have direct deposit? So like, why is there a need for this government institution now to bring in their banking system to say, oh, we have a solution and allow you to get paid quicker? We're already getting paid, some nights an evening before. If you get paid on a Thursday, the money's in your account Wednesday night. So we already have these things. They're just talking about if you have a business and you have that hold. That's not really a big deal, but they're saying that is the solution that they have because they're going direct bank to bank. But trust me, they're going to strong arm your PayPals and your Venmos and your Zelles, etc. To probably they might be dissolved. Who knows? But if they don't go, to their beckoning of the rules that they want to do and control, that could very well happen. So again, we're seeing these things. Now, I talked about Prophecy. This is a film that you probably have seen, and if you have seen, you know what I'm talking about. If not, you may have overlooked it. But check this clip out. This movie came out in 2011.
Allow me to introduce my mother-in-law, Clara, my wife, Michelle, and my daughter, Sylvia. Whoa, where's the rest?
Never met the quota.
My units are up from last week.
So is the quota.
Just once, I'd like to wake up with more time on my hand than hours in the day. How old are you? 28.
I'm 105. But the day comes when you've had enough. If you had as much time as I have, what would you do with it?
Sure as hell wouldn't waste it.
Last time anyone saw him alive, there was over a century on that clock.
Well, follow the time.
His name is Will Salas.
You can't hide 100 years in the ghetto.
You know that time will get you killed.
Hey, Mom, I'm gonna get out of here.
I just wouldn't know what to do if I lost you.
I don't believe we've had the pleasure of your company before, Mr. Salas. Will Salas.
I'm sorry to have to break up the party, Mr. West. I just need to work with your friend. This is my destiny.
Please take me home.
Can't do that.
Why?
You're keeping me alive. How can you live with yourself watching people die right next to you?
You don't watch. You close your eyes.
I'm gonna make them pay. I'm gonna take them for everything they've got. Come on, help yourselves!
Take the time, it's free.
You put enough time in the wrong hands, you upset the whole system. Let's hope so.
If this works, we gotta get more.
I can help you get all the time you want.
You know we're coming to get you.
His crime wasn't taking time. He was giving it away.
So yeah, the movie in time is pretty deep. Again, as I mentioned, these movies that they put out are not just for entertainment. They are moving towards a cashless society. We're already there, pretty much. I mean, do you even hold cash anymore? We definitely don't have any coins in our pockets anymore. We're moving towards a space where we are going to be everything is going to be digitized. Right now, we're using even our phones now in Whole Foods and certain spaces. You have the palm scan where you are now putting your hand over a device and it is deducting your account. So, the retina scan, all these things are going to be happening. And I see this actually, happening where they're going to attribute payment in forms of time. Now, it may not happen in our life form. Obviously, there has to be some sort of, connection to causing you to decease based upon the clock. But it's not to say that they're not already working on this, because like I said, they spend their time working on stuff that are happening 20, 30, 40, 50 years from now. Doesn't mean that you should, say, it won't happen to me. Think about your bloodline. Okay. Think about what you would think if you were in that space, and if your ancestors knew about it, they did nothing. How would you feel? So it is something for us to just be aware of, look more into, understand. Don't volunteer for this shit, y'all. Don't volunteer for it. If you got a phone and you got your retina scan to get in, your face ID, your fingerprint, all that stuff, don't volunteer that information because of you want easy access. Don't go to stores that are saying, hey, go ahead and just, put your information, give us your fingerprints. And then when you want to pay for something, just put your hand over and scan over that. They have now where they're creating phones that are going to be put into your fingers, into your hands, so that you won't even use the phone anymore. Don't buy into the integration of technology into your body. Number one, because it's foreign. And two, because there's some type of control behind it. Understand it isn't for your leisure, it's for their control. You thinking, yeah, this is great, I could do this now. But yeah, what are they doing? They're monitoring every move. I mean, they're listening now, obviously, but why give them extra ways to do this and to control and govern us? Right? That's the thing that I think that we're missing here. We like all this technological advances, but don't understand, what are we giving up? Our privacy, our freedom, and we're sitting in line for our children for even worse. Now, here's the last clip I want to show you, then we're going to get ready to close out.
A term we've heard before, but do you know how they can affect you? Let's take a quick history lesson. Back in the 19th century, bank runs were so common that they were almost seasonal. The Panic of 1907 was a granddaddy of panics, leading to a collapsed banking system. Congress introduced solutions like deposit insurance, postal savings, and central bank. The postal savings system worked pretty well until the Great Depression hit. Fast forward to today, bank failures are still happening, and it's a scary thing. Deposit insurance is there to protect retail depositors, but what about corporations? The reported inability of some companies to make payroll payments after a bank's closure suggests it's time to re-examine this important aspect of our banking system protection. So, the question is, are we at risk of another banking collapse? Keep watching to find out.
So again, we need to think about a couple things that we talked about tonight. We need to understand we've got an array of. I hope that you found this was helpful in understanding how the formation of our monetary system was created. And not only that, you have some names, so you can, continue your diligence, share it with your friends and family, share it with yourself, and becoming more aware of what we're facing, so that you're not just regurgitating, something with no basis, right? Someone easily labeling you as a conspiracy theorist, right? But we are facing something that we have to choose. Now that you know, what do? You could act like you didn't hear anything you heard tonight and just go on with your life and figure, that was just entertainment. Or you can start to see this thing manifest before your eyes and understand and regret that you didn't do anything to create an alternative. Do I have the silver bullet solution? No. Am I putting in my 10,000 hours in to get there? Absolutely. And that is the goal that I hope that each of you will add to, if you're not already doing, into your life. Right. So tonight, I hope that you found this evening was fruitful. As always, I hope that it was something that gave you something to think about, something that is worth digesting, revisiting. Feel free to watch the replay. Speak to your family, your loved ones, because this affects them. Understand the importance of learning about finances, because if you get your finances taken care of, that will free you up to not have to be in this rat race, so you can do what it is that you need to do to either, if you want to still live here or move somewhere else, that is possible, across the borders, or even, I'll even dare say, to another planet eventually. I agree that all technology is good. It is not good on advancement, but a form of control, 100%. and giving thanks. It's our great show. I appreciate you for tuning in. Big up respect to Sister Sherry Jackson. If you don't know about her, please look her up. She has her own podcast station, and she is the one guru that talks about the fuckery of the IRS and how you can stick it back to them. Um, but again, I hope that you all enjoyed this evening. We are going to be back tomorrow. Tomorrow, we're going to talk about some health remedies. We're going to talk about the art of intermittent fasting and autophagy, because the most important thing that we need to be thinking about, in addition to getting our finances right, is our health. If you don't have your health right, then all this is for nothing. Right? All this is for nothing. So if you're not planning to live a sustainable life, making better choices, learning how to repair your body without going into those white mad scientists that have those white lab coats that are ready to inject you with anything and never deal with the actual things that you're putting in your mouth, then we are going to be in peril. So we're going to talk about some of that tomorrow. And again, if you found tonight's episode was fruitful, entertaining, that you felt that you got something from it, I would love and I would humbly accept any type of monetary donation to my Cash App, which is at Bitmarley, or PayPal, paypal.me.d/DD time. Could be any amount of $1, $5, $50, $100, $1,000, whatever you feel it. If you would like to contribute, I welcome that, humbly give thanks. And even if that is not the case, your subscribing and your liking and sharing is currency as well. So I give thanks for that time. I'm going to close out with one more commercial break, and then we're going to close out. So here we go. This is the last time I'm going to play. I know you guys are like, hey, you played this time already. But this got to pay the bills. Got to put the word out. All right, here we go.
Discover
That one. Sorry, y'all.
this summer, unlock your potential with our summer workshop. Join our dynamic online courses, designed for everyone aged 13 to 75, starting June 1st through August 3rd with Mbwe Ishangi of the Crypto Woke Financial Sustainability Movement. Dive into financial education for adults or gear up for success with financial education for student athletes. Teens and young adults can build their financial future, and everyone can explore the wonders of STEAM. For just $149.99, you get access and can invite 3 friends or family members to join you, or choose their own course. That's for people for one low price. Workshops start June 1st and run through August 3rd. Sign up now and invest in your future.
All right, so that workshop starts again June 1st, and in less than 2 weeks from now. So if you want to join, you can take 4 different courses for $149, and not only for you, but you can invite 3 other friends or family to take the course with you, and or of the other 4 courses. So a hell of a deal to take both the financial literacy course for adults, the course for student athletes, and also a course for students grades 13 to 25. And also, the last one is my STEAM course. So if anyone is interested, or if you know people that you think would definitely, uh, benefit from this course these 4 courses that I'm offering for the summer, we're meeting bi-weekly, every two Saturdays for basically 8 weeks. So it's basically 4 or 5 courses throughout the summer. So we won't take up your whole summer, and I think that you'll find it very, very helpful in creating a path of financial stability for our families. So with that said, I am going to close out. I give thanks for everyone for joining in. I appreciate you spending time with me this evening. My goal is to, again, help serve you well and showing you some things that I feel are ways to freedom that we can chart and manifest in our lifetime. And I look forward to seeing you tomorrow. And again, please feel free to like, share, and subscribe. Bless up.